Whispers in the snow. By evening, the blizzard had reached full fury. Elena had spent the afternoon securing the cabin, checking windows, filling water containers, setting out emergency lanterns in case the power failed. The wind screamed around the eaves like a living thing, and snow piled against the door in drifts that grew higher by the hour. She tried calling Theo twice, both attempts going straight to voicemail. Reception was always spotty in the mountains, but the storm would make it nearly impossible. Worry gnawed at her despite her frustration. Theo was experienced in the wilderness, but nature in Alaska didn't forgive mistakes. "Please be somewhere safe," she whispered, looking out at the white chaos. The power flickered once, twice, then stabilized. Elena lit candles anyway, their warm glow a comfort against the howling darkness outside. She tried to lose herself in reading, but the words blurred on the page, her thoughts constantly returning to Theo, to the mysterious notebook, to what tomorrow might bring. Near midnight, the generator's steady hum faltered and died. The sudden silence was almost as startling as the darkness that followed. Elena fumbled for the flashlight she'd kept nearby, its beam cutting through the blackness. "Perfect," she muttered, making her way to the wood stove. At least they'd have heat. As she added another log to the fire, a sound cut through the storm's roar, something striking the door. Elena froze, listening. 3 more thumps followed, deliberate and human. Her heart leapt to her throat. No one should be out in this weather. No one except... She hurried to the door, struggling against the weight of snow piled against it. When it finally gave way, a gust of frigid air rushed in, along with a figure so covered in snow they were barely recognizable. "Theo!" Elena gasped, helping him inside and pushing the door closed against the wind. He stomped snow from his boots, his face obscured by his frost-covered scarf. When he pulled it down, his lips were blue with cold, his dark eyes wide with a strange mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. "Theo!" Elena breathed, his voice hoarse. "Thank God, you're okay." "Me? I'm not the one who just walked through a blizzard?" She helped him remove his ice-crusted coat, fear and relief battling within her. "What were you thinking? You could have died out there." Theo shivered violently as warmth began penetrating his frozen clothes. Couldn't wait. Had to get back tonight. For what possible reason? Nothing is worth risking your life in a storm like this. He fumbled with his backpack, his fingers still stiff with cold. "For this," he said, pulling out a cylindrical leather case, protecting it from the melting snow as if it contained something priceless. "And because I know what day it is." Elena stilled. "You remembered my birthday?" Theo's face softened as he looked at her, really looked at her, for what felt like the first time in months. "Of course I did. And tomorrow's our anniversary. Did you think I'd forget?" The simple question undid her. Tears sprang to her eyes unbidden, and she turned away, busying herself with getting him a towel, a blanket, anything to hide the sudden vulnerability she felt. "Honestly, yes, I thought you had forgotten me." Theo caught her hand, stopping her nervous movements. "Elena, look at me." She did, reluctantly meeting his gaze in the flickering candlelight. His face was thinner than she remembered, dark circles under his eyes speaking of sleepless nights. "I know I've been distant," he said quietly. "I know it seemed like I was drifting away, but there's something I need to show you, something I've been working on for months." He guided her to sit by the fire, then placed the leather case in her hands. "Open it." With hesitant fingers, Elena unrolled the case, revealing what appeared to be an old journal, its pages yellowed with age, its leather binding cracked and weathered. "What is this?" It belonged to a Finnish astronomer named Alto, who came to Alaska in 1928. I found references to his work while researching aurora photography techniques. He was obsessed with a theory about certain places where the aurora's energy touches the Earth in specific, mathematically predictable patterns. Elena opened the journal carefully, seeing diagrams, equations, and handwritten observations in faded ink. Some of the mathematics looked strikingly similar to what she'd seen in Theo's notebook. "This is what you've been chasing? Some old theory about auroras?" Theo's eyes shone with an intensity she hadn't seen in years. "Not just any theory, Elena. Turn to page 47. She did, and her breath caught. There, pressed between the pages, was a dried wildflower, and beneath it, a photograph, old and sepia-toned, of what appeared to be a meteor shower. Handwritten below was a date, a set of coordinates, and a single line. The night, the sky, remembered. "I don't understand," she whispered, though something deep within her trembled with recognition. "Those coordinates," Theo said softly, "are exactly where our cabin stands today."
Aurora's promise. Dawn broke with unexpected clarity, the storm having blown itself out sometime in the night. Elena woke to find Theo already up, stoking the fire back to life. They had talked until exhaustion claimed them, falling asleep on the sofa wrapped in blankets and newfound understanding. "The roads will still be impassable," he said, noticing she was awake, "but at least we can see the sky again." Elena stretched, feeling oddly lightened despite the heaviness of their conversations. "Happy anniversary," she said softly. Theo's smile reached his eyes, the way it used to. "Happy anniversary, and belated happy birthday." After a simple breakfast, Theo grew strangely nervous, checking his watch repeatedly. "What is it?" Elena asked. "There's one more thing I need to show you, the real reason I had to get back through the storm. But we need to wait until noon." They spent the morning examining Alto's journal together, Elena applying her astronomical knowledge to his theories, Theo explaining how he'd traced the connections. What had seemed like abandonment now revealed itself as a kind of devotion, misguided in execution perhaps, but born of something deeper than she had realized. As noon approached, Theo led her to his study. "Close your eyes," he instructed. Elena complied, hearing him moving equipment around, the distinctive sound of his camera shutter clicking several times. "Okay," he said finally, "you can look." The room had been transformed. The blinds were drawn, and projected on one wall was a slowly rotating image of the night sky, but unlike any star map she'd seen before. Pinpoints of light formed familiar constellations, but they were overlaid with something else. Lines of green and blue light weaving between the stars in intricate patterns. "What am I looking at?" she asked, mesmerized. "I mapped every aurora I've photographed over the past 5 years against the positions of the stars on significant dates in our lives. Our first meeting as children, the day we met again in Seattle, our wedding day, the day we moved here." As she watched, the pattern shifted, revealing a complex symmetry that took her breath away. To the untrained eye, it might have looked like random connections, but to Elena, who had spent her life studying celestial movements, the mathematical precision was unmistakable. "Alito was right," Theo continued. "There are patterns in how the aurora interacts with stellar positions, patterns that repeat on a 30-year cycle, and our relationship has followed those same patterns." He moved to stand beside her, taking her hand. "Every important moment between us happened when these specific stars aligned with particular aurora configurations, including today." As if on cue, the projection shifted again, showing today's astronomical alignment, our 5th anniversary, a perfect mirror of the night they had first met as children. "That's why I had to get back," Theo explained. "According to Alito's calculations, tonight will be the first perfect convergence since 1992. The meteor shower, the aurora, the exact stellar alignment, all visible from right here." Elena turned to him, overwhelmed. "You did all this for me? For us?" "I got lost in the research, in the story of us," he admitted. "I forgot that the story is still being written, that we're living it now, not just chasing its beginning. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small wooden box, hand-carved with constellations. I made this for you. It contains something old and something new. Elena opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was a delicate pendant, a silver star with a tiny emerald at its center, catching the light like an earthbound star. Beside it lay a small, smooth stone. The pendant is new, Theo explained, but the stone, that's the one you gave me that night in 1992. You said it looked like it fell from space and that I should keep it to remember the stars. Elena's eyes filled with tears as a memory surfaced. A small boy looking sad as his father packed their tent. A goodbye that felt more significant than it should have between two children who just met. I told you we'd meet again under the same stars, she whispered, the memory suddenly crystal clear. And you promised you'd remember. I did remember, Theo said softly, just not consciously, until now. He took the pendant and fastened it around her neck. I've been a distant planet these past months, Elena, orbiting you but never coming close enough. I want to change that. Outside, the afternoon sun glinted off snow-covered peaks, the sky an impossible blue after the storm's fury. By nightfall, if Alito's calculations proved correct, that same sky would dance with lights that had traveled millions of miles to reach them, creating patterns that had been set in motion before they were born. Tonight, we'll see the convergence together, Theo said. But what matters isn't the astronomical rarity, it's that we're here to witness it together. That's the real miracle. Elena stepped into his embrace, feeling the familiar contours of her body against hers. The distance that had grown between them hadn't been an ending, but a necessary orbit, bringing them back to each other with new understanding, new appreciation for what they'd almost lost. I love you, she whispered against his chest, not because the stars decreed it, but because I choose to, every day. As dusk approached, they bundled up against the cold and made their way to the clearing behind their cabin. Theo set up his camera equipment while Elena laid out blankets on the pristine snow. The first stars were just beginning to appear in the darkening sky. Do you think we would have found each other without all this? Elena asked, gesturing toward the heavens. Without cosmic intervention? Theo considered this as he adjusted his tripod. I believe we make our own destiny, he said finally. But perhaps the universe gives us opportunities, moments when the door between what might be and what is stands slightly ajar. As darkness fell completely, the first shimmer of green appeared on the northern horizon, tentative at first, then bolder, sweeping across the sky in ribbons of light. Above, stars winked into visibility one by one, and then, right on schedule, the first meteor streaked across the darkness, leaving a silver trail in its wake. They lay back on the blankets, hands intertwined, watching as the heavens put on a display that seemed choreographed just for them. Meteors cut through curtains of aurora. Stars shone steadily behind the shifting veils of light. And somewhere in that cosmic dance was written the story of two children who met beneath a similar sky 3 decades earlier. Make a wish, Theo whispered, as a particularly bright meteor blazed overhead. Alana turned to look at him, his face illuminated by the ethereal glow of the aurora. In that moment, she saw both the boy he had been and the man he had become. I already have everything I could wish for, she said. As the night deepened and the celestial show reached its peak, they renewed promises made and forgotten, whispered dreams into the frigid air, and wrote the next chapter of their story beneath skies that had witnessed their beginning and now celebrated their continuation. A love rekindled not by cosmic decree, but by the simple, profound choice to find their way back to each other through darkness and light, guided by stars both distant and near.
Unexpected feelings. Your 4 o'clock is here, Alexander's assistant announced through the intercom. He glanced up from his laptop with a frown. He didn't recall any appointments, and his calendar was suspiciously empty. Likely his assistant's doing, her subtle way of forcing him to leave the office at a reasonable hour. The door opened before he could respond, and Maya walked in, looking distinctly uncomfortable in the corporate environment. "Maya?" Alexander rose from his chair, genuinely surprised. In the 2 months since their arrangement began, she had never visited his office. "Is something wrong?" "She need to speak with you." Her voice was tight, controlled. "Privately." He nodded to his assistant, who quietly closed the door behind her. "It's Sarah," Maya said as soon as they were alone, referring to her younger sister. "She's in the hospital. Her heart condition? It's worse. The doctors are recommending a specialist in Boston, but insurance won't cover it, and I can't—" She broke off, visibly struggling to maintain composure. Alexander moved around his desk. "What do you need?" "I don't want your money," she said quickly, pride stiffening her spine. "That's not why I'm here, but I need to go to Boston with her. It might be weeks, maybe months. I can't maintain our appearances during that time." Understanding dawned. "You're worried about the contract?" "Yes. No." She ran her hair through her hair, loosening it from its careful arrangement. "I don't know. This arrangement matters to you. Your company? Sit down," he instructed gently, guiding her to the leather sofa in the corner of his office. To his surprise, she didn't resist. "Now, what hospital is Sarah in?" 30 minutes later, they were walking into Mount Sinai Hospital. Alexander had made a series of calls in the car, speaking in the authoritative tone Maya had only heard him use in business settings. "Dr. Patel will meet us in the cardiac unit," he explained, guiding her through corridors with unexpected familiarity. Maya stopped abruptly. "Alexander, I can't accept— This isn't charity, Maya." His voice was surprisingly gentle. "Consider it an adjustment to our contract." Before she could respond, they reached Sarah's room. The young woman, lying in the hospital bed, looked like a younger version of Maya. Same determined chin, same expressive eyes, now widened in surprise at seeing her sister, accompanied by Alexander Reed. "You must be Sarah," Alexander said, his usual corporate stiffness noticeably absent. "Maya's told me about you." "She hasn't told me enough about you, apparently," Sarah replied with a weak smile, her gaze moving curiously between them. Maya moved to her sister's side, explaining the situation in low tones while Alexander stepped into the hallway to speak with the approaching doctor. Later that evening, after Sarah had been prepped for transfer and sedated for the night, Maya found Alexander in the hospital waiting room, tie loosened, sleeves rolled up, looking strangely at home beneath the harsh fluorescent lights. "Why are you still here?" she asked, exhaustion evident in every line of her body. "I thought you might need a ride home?" He glanced up from his tablet. "I meant the hospital. You've been here for hours. Your company will survive without me for one evening." He closed the tablet case with a decisive click. "You need rest. The medical transport leaves at 7 a.m. "I haven't packed. I need to arrange coverage for my shifts. Talk to the building manager about my superintendent duties." "Already handled," Alexander said, standing. "Your shifts are covered. Your building manager informed. There's a car waiting to take us to my penthouse where you can rest before tomorrow." Maya stared at him. "Why are you doing this?" Something vulnerable flickered across his usual composed features. "My mother died of heart failure when I was 12. My father was too busy building his company to notice the symptoms until it was too late." He looked away. "The doctors said earlier intervention might have saved her." The confession hung in the air between them, more intimate than any physical touch they had shared for the benefit of photographers or curious observers. "I didn't know," Maya said softly. "It's not something I discuss." He met her eyes again. "Let me help, Maya, not because of our contract, but because I can." In the quiet hospital corridor, Maya did something neither of them expected. She stepped forward and embraced him, her arms wrapping around his waist, her head resting against his chest. After a moment of surprise, his arms encircled her, and they stood together in wordless understanding. 3 weeks later, Maya sat beside Sarah's hospital bed in Boston, reading aloud from her sister's textbook. Sarah insisted on keeping up with her pre-med studies despite her recovery. "You should take a break," came a familiar voice from the doorway. Maya looked up, startled to see Alexander leaning against the frame, casual in jeans and a sweater, a look she had never seen on him before. "Alexander, what are you doing here?" "Board meeting at MIT," he explained, stepping into the room. "Thought I'd check on my favorite chens." Sarah grinned. He's been visiting every week, sis. Didn't he tell you? Maya's surprised gaze met Alexander's almost sheepish one. No, he didn't. Later, walking through the hospital gardens, Maya confronted him. You've been coming to Boston every week? The company jet makes it convenient, he said, as if it were nothing. For 6-hour round trips? To visit my sister? Alexander stopped walking, turning to face her. To visit both of you. The autumn breeze caught Maya's hair, sending strands across her face. Without thinking, Alexander reached out to brush them away, his fingers lingering against her cheek. I miss you, he admitted, the words seemingly surprising him as much as her. Maya's heart stuttered in her chest. That wasn't part of our arrangement. No, he agreed softly. It wasn't. Their eyes held, the pretense of their contract marriage suddenly paper-thin against the reality of whatever had grown between them. Alexander leaned closer, hesitating just a breath away from her lips, giving her the chance to pull away. She didn't. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, nothing like the perfunctory pecks they had shared for cameras or curious observers. Then Maya's hands moved to his shoulders, and Alexander drew her closer, deepening the kiss with a hunger that startled them both. When they finally separated, Maya's expression was troubled. This complicates things. Alexander tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, his touch lingering. I've built my career on solving complications, and creating some along the way, she reminded him, though she made no move to step back from his embrace. True, he acknowledged with the hint of a smile, but some complications are worth the risk. As they walked back toward the hospital, their hands found each other, fingers intertwining in a gesture too private to be for show, too natural to be denied, and too dangerous to fully trust in a relationship built on a contract they neither anticipated breaking.